A big day for educational opportunities in Chattanooga as the Homeschool Expo begins this morning, just about now, at Camp Jordan at East Ridge. Homeschoolers are flocking from many points around the South here, and people who are in the public school sector should take note and think about attending as well. It's only $8 for a family to get in for both days. That is to say, tomorrow as well. Today, 9 to 6, and tomorrow, 9 to 4. Educational supplies, templates, software, films, books, games, gadgets, aids to learning, aids to help children love learning. That's what this program, this expo, this fair is all about, giving children a love of learning, and is helping parents and grandparents to help the young people in their lives love to read, love to think, love to do, love to study, to have an open mind, to create their own genius in, you must say, in the private sector. And that's what I do here at the David Tulis Show every day, is defend the private sector as opposed to the government sector, which is increasingly finding problems in its scale, the scale problem that it has, becoming so big, becoming so vast, becoming so unaware of real costs and the real life of the city and of the nation, that the government, as we are coming to understand, is going to be the end of the republic. And that is a remarkable thing to consider. In some fashion, it will happen, and that is because of the massive debt that the good people in Washington have amassed, and the slew of promises, not just to domestic clients, but clients overseas, passing probably $120 trillion. The debt itself in the treasury markets, the official debt markets, is about 20 trillion paper dollars. Gladly, they don't owe real money in that market. They owe just paper, which they can supply really without end, because we have, in our day, we have a money-making machine called the Federal Reserve System, and a whole sector that has grown up around it since the collapse of 2009, and that is the high-flying financialization sector. And because that sector has gotten so large and so vast, we face an impossible problem, and that is paying it off. If the debts can't be paid off, the obligations cannot possibly be met by those who created the promises of the future guarantee, the future payment. That would be government agencies. The beneficiaries domestically, of course, are union folks, union payrolls, union retirement rolls, and sagging infrastructure. And out west, in some states, as much as 80% of the land is owned by the good people in Washington. And so there are assets that are not being anything but a burden on the public fisc, and they will be sold off at basement bottom prices in the meltdown ahead. It is something coming Friday. And to shore up local economy and the free market, we have every year in July the Homeschool Expo. I'll be there after the program. I'll duck out and head over there to Camp Jordan. It's in East Ridge, Camp Jordan. And I'll be at the welcoming table. Make sure you look for me, the man with the bow tie. I think today, I'm not sure Jeanette's going to pass on this, and I didn't take some extra bow ties with me to satisfy her critical eye. An eye that from 20 paces could peel open an oyster when she suspects that my bow tie does not quite match my costume here at Nooga Radio as your host. And that is who I am, David Tulis, your host here on the David Tulis Show. And with a lot to get to, and we're getting to it. We're getting to it on Facebook at the Nooga Radio channel. And I do thank you for tuning in there. It's a very convenient way just to watch or to hear what we have in the way of local analysis. We've got a lot of it. There's so much local analysis to get to today that I'm going to demand of the management that I get an extra hour. I'm just going to say, look, this has got to stop. 2 hours is simply not enough. And today, especially on Expo Friday, and also Book of the Week. We're going to do Book of the Week, and I'm holding up for my viewer on Facebook and on YouTube at the Hot News Talk Radio channel on YouTube. The book that I'm going to recommend, I'm showing the back, and you cannot see what the cover is, but I'm going to tell you there's a wonderful, wonderful book, a writer with an amazing name of whom you have not heard, and I will tell you why you should read this book. It's only 140 pages long, And I have a hard copy of the 1958 edition from Caxton Publishers out in Idaho. A wonderful, wonderful read, lyrical, poetical, majestic, and extraordinarily painful review of our current situation. Yes, it was written in 1950, published in 1958, and yet we can see where we are today. Jonathan E. Walker, the bus driver, a man acting in the transportation field, is asking for an alternative sentence in his case, though Neil Pinkston, the DA, is, according to press reports today, planning further criminal charges of this man whose apparent negligence cost the lives of 6 children and injured many others. And this story, of course, is not about a private user of the road, a private traveler, but one involved in transportation. The story that I've put out, it took me a couple days to get it off my desk, but appears at thepostandemail.com. That's thepostandemail.com, which has a remarkable amount of Tennessee material. The publisher is Sharon Rondeau, and the story is about the most amazing, I'd say the most important case, the most important criminal appeal in 80 years in Tennessee, a case which has a double whammy, and that is against our unconstitutionally vague Tennessee gun ban law. We have a gun ban in Tennessee, and that law is under direct assault at its weakest point. And you'll have to read to find out where that point is, and that would be at thepostandemail.com. Just do a find if you want to on Jay Hirsch, who's the defendant and the appellant in this case. Now, here's a quote from defendant Hirsch, who's seeking to overthrow not just the gun law, but the abuse of the traffic statute in Tennessee in Title 55. He says, "There is no record or evidence that I was engaged in a regulated commercial activity." He was convicted on 3 travel charges. His God-given, constitutionally guaranteed, inalienable or unalienable right of travel assailed by a THP, Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper. And he says that is transporting people or goods for hire on the public highway by motor vehicle. The 1936 Motor Vehicle Code was named Uniform Motor Vehicle Operator and Chauffeur's License Act, completely commercial in nature, and the title indicates that it is commercial. It is directed, he says, at those engaged in commercial activity, that is, transporting people or goods by motor vehicle for hire on the public highways. The Tennessee Motor Vehicle Code, he says, deals with taxable privileges granted by voluntary application for a fee. On the other hand, people in their private capacity have an inherent, unalienable, and God-given right to liberty at birth, which of necessity allows them to travel freely on the public highways in their own private conveyances in the ordinary course of life, and business without regulation. This sounds like me. Does it sound like my analysis? Well, I approve of this analysis. He says, and this is what he said actually Tuesday, and I have a record of his hearing. I argued that the Vehicle Code of 1936 did not disturb the people's unalienable right to travel, to private travel. It only affected commercial transportation by motor vehicle for hire. The term rights does not even appear in the code, and all keywords and phrases of the code, he says, are defined in commercial terms. The unalienable and God-given right to travel is non-statutory. I got that? Non-taxable and forever outside the world of commerce and legislation. It is a free and inherent right from birth and is available to everyone. Now, notice what's happening here. This is an argument for the free market and local economy, for the sharing economy, the private economy that we are going to explore today in detail, not in the legal sense. We're going to look at it culturally and even in the Christian perspective, you might say, in terms of religion, which would be the claims of God upon mankind, right? All religion purports to deal with that claim by God upon us. But of course, Christianity is not religion. It is not. It is the true revelation and man's rule for life and worship on this earth. Just another paragraph. Privileges, Jay Hirsch says, the man who's going to bring us, if the judges agree with his analysis, bring us possibly a freer age, dismantling the most important part of Tennessee commercial government. He says privileges are taxable and discriminatory. Think about that. A privilege, if you have one, means it's a discriminatory claim against the marketplace, and you're going to take advantage of that discrimination to get into the in crowd, right? That's what happens when you have a privilege. And somehow driving is a privilege. There is really not. It's not really a privilege, because a privilege would be a calling like accounting or doctoring, lawyering, chiropractic. These are privileges because they're occupations that the state owns ostensibly for health, safety, and welfare benefit. He goes on to say, privileges are taxable and discriminatory. One must pay to play by obtaining a license. However, this was very profitable for the state. So over time, people were led to believe that they were all engaged in commerce and are subject to the taxable privileges, statutes, and police enforcement. That's a summary of this important argument, and you can find out more about it, of course, at Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor. That's Nooganomics.com, read by Dave Crockett, I'll have you know. We too are fighting over who is the leading Nooga centrist in Chattanooga. I say it's me. Now, also in the news, there's a account on TV3's website about 3 and 4 seniors in high school are entering into the embraces of the federal power for FAFSA, the free access for student aid system for free or subsidized college education. Of course, Tennessee is giving away this worthless benefit, which is to say education or schooling. There are whole freebies now for us as this state benefit continues to decline in market power. Think if you're going to give it away, how do you make it worthless more quickly than to give it away? You have something of value. You have a cartel of schools. How not more quickly to make that value decline than to give away what it offers, right? That's a way. Rather, the state should raise prices instead of giving it away. It should raise the price of that service because it's increasingly valuable. But of course, we know that it's not increasingly valuable. It is increasingly in disrepute. And here are students lined up for federal aid to get into that system, which for many colleagues and many among them already free. Jeff Sessions, the federal chief prosecutor, is going the wrong way on civil asset forfeiture. Tennessee Senator Todd Gardenhire, in this matter, has taken the right position, and that is civil asset forfeiture reform. And I'm not clear on what has happened with that in Tennessee, but Sessions, in the Washington Post story on national security heading, Sessions greenlights police to seize cash property from people suspected of crimes but not charged. That is a grievous development where we have the feds involved in the strip mining of the economy on wheels. Mostly these things happen on the highway, and since 2008, the story says $3 billion of cash and property have been seized from in more than 55,000 incidents in the state of Tennessee. Multi-million dollars by gangland operations of policing departments, sheriff's departments, and combined task forces, often with federal complicity and federal involvement. That is part of the strip mining national economy. And Jeff Sessions, an appointee of a somewhat dissatisfied President Trump, saying he's going to make a man of himself on this point. We face here in Chattanooga the fruit of the results of a dysfunctional national economy, and we're going to look at today how it is we can overcome some of these obstacles. The Homeschool Expo that's going on right now in East Ridge is part of the solution. It is part of the solution that is drawing an increasing number of people, even people outside of the Christian interest, if you will. Those would be secularists, unschoolers, non-schoolers, and good old solid humanists are seeing that they don't need to have the state to train their children in progressive morals, progressive perception, and progressive claim. The schooling, the main curriculum of schooling is not math or English or science or band. It is schooling. That's right. The main curriculum, as John Taylor Gatto says, one of my favorite writers, is schooling itself. The idea that you have to be dependent to learn things. You have to learn things in groups. There has to be a mutual support of knowing things, of calculating things. and that there is a state authority for all things. And the setting of time, the ending of time of discussion for an important and exciting topic is suddenly cut off by the bell or the prospect of the bell. The curriculum is schooling itself. Homeschooling is one of the solutions to local economy solutions to this coming the increasing dysfunction. And we're going to see. Just let me explain how this is becoming a problem. The main problem, I think, if we read the free market writers whom I've been recommending to you, one of the main problems is that we don't have discipline in the national sector anymore. There's no discipline, and we're in, as Charles Hugh Smith says, we're in a death spiral of financialization. And financialization is where you have an expansion of interest, of leverage, and speculation in lieu of real world goods, real world services, and wages. And because we have debt rising in a phenomenal way, wages are not rising fast enough to pay for that debt. Much of it is corporate, much of it is speculative, much of it from the hothouses of the financial industry. We are here going to be suffering for that. And the main effect will be a seizing of the credit sector, loss of credit, and finally a loss of respect for the paper dollar. And there is an extreme policy in effect now for a decade from the Fed, which has suppressed the rate of interest. The rate of interest is how you measure what something is going to be in the future, right? It's how you discount future goods for present goods. And when the interest rate is artificially lowered and kept low effectively by force and by the statutes that require the receipt of paper money and payment for debt, you are involving yourself in mutually reinforcing schemes which bring the country, the entire national economy, to the brink, and not just the government but the economy itself. Read David Stockman today. The past couple of days, David Stockman's had two good pieces, one on Trump's bubble about 3 or 4 days ago at LewRockwell.com. Lew Rockwell, the most important anti-war, anti-state free market website in the world, carries Stockman. And Stockman's becoming increasingly alarmed at what's happening. There is an accretive, mutually reinforcing geometric rise in what Smith calls systemic fragility. That is the unavoidable output of financialization, where these abstract claims, these abstract promises, agreements, CDRs, contracts are poorly understood, not just by common people like you and me, you here, the listener on the David Tulis Show, Nooga Radio, but by pundits and the economic folks who explain things for us, right, to give us these sort of false narratives in the economy. But we have this multitude of trends. But the problem that we have in the national economy is there's no discipline. And Smith, in his very brief note on the death spiral of financialization, says that we don't have the discipline of sound money. That's gone. The discipline of limited leverage, gone. The discipline of prudent lending, gone. The discipline of mark-to-market discovery of the price of collateral, that's gone too. In other words, these are restraints on the creation of new debt. The discipline of separating investment and commercial banking, that was under Glass-Steagall, that's of course gone. That departed under President Clinton, and that's when we had our first one of our first earlier bubbles. There's also the discipline of open market interest rates, again, where the interest rate is not set coercively by the central bank, but is something that is competitive, right? Competition sets that price, in the aggregation of the market's interest set that price, and it's not set from above, you might say, but from below. We are here below. David Tulis, we're thinking about local economy and the free market. We don't have anymore either, at the last point, the discipline of losses being absorbed by those who generated the loans. That's gone too. So we don't have the proper signals in the economy, and so we have an increasingly fragile economy in the financial sector. But that's reflected in many other sectors as well. Look at how fragile policing has become. Look at how fragile localities, even such as Charlottesville, Virginia, where I got a degree at UVA. Even there was an extraordinary police action against some counter-protesters in kind of protesting against a KKK rally with 1,000 people, and they were tear gassed because they didn't instantaneously break up. And the ACLU and the Rutherford Foundation, John Whitehead, whose work you can see at Nooganomics.com, complain about this. They're requesting that there be demilitarization. The militarization, the David Roddy militarization of policing, is another picture of the growing fear of the establishment, that it's us versus them, and that people are increasingly angry, increasingly bitter, and also increasingly smart. People are smart, wisening up to their rights, and that is something that's feared. Now, we're going to talk with a dad now, a father of 4 children, who's living on 6 acres in Appleton and has an unusual perspective on local economy. David Tulis.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports.